Today we're talking about Everyone's an Author, Chapter 4, Language, Power, and Rhetoric. The relationship between language, power, and privilege. Language plays a crucial role in how power and privilege manifest in society. Power refers to the ability to control or influence others, while privilege refers to the advantages or benefits some individuals enjoy over others. Example of linguistic power. A 2018 study by urban policy professor Jeffrey Grogger revealed that people with identifiable Southern accents tend to earn lower wages compared to those without or with a less noticeable accent. This demonstrates that language can be a source of discrimination. Linguistic discrimination. Research has confirmed that discrimination based on language exists in various areas, such as the judicial system, housing, education, and employment. People often make judgments based on how someone speaks, which can result in inequalities. The critical language awareness, examining your own language attitudes. Developing language awareness. Critical language awareness refers to the practice of reflecting on how language, power, and privilege function around us. This habit allows individuals to make more informed and thoughtful decisions about their own language choices. Personal reflection exercise. Reflect on your language attitudes. Are there certain accents or ways of speaking that you find irritating or particularly appealing? Where do your preferences come from? Are there any stereotypes involved in your judgment? What do you guys think? I used to live down south for a few years. I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was famous for saying this was a no y'all zone. I didn't want to hear y'all. So what is standardized English? Standardized English is the variety of English commonly used in schools, government, business, and industries across the United States. It's also referred to as academic English or white mainstream English. Importance of standardizations. Languages with active writing traditions tend to develop a standardized form over time. Standardized English is widely used in public contexts like education and government and is often perceived as a correct form of English. Challenging the superiority of standardized English. Scholars are increasingly recognizing that viewing one form of language as superior to others is problematic. While standardized English has its place, other dialects and language are equally valid and should not be considered inferior. Language rights, a new perspective. Have you ever thought about language as something you have rights to? Language rights can include not only the right to speak and write, but also the right to listen, read, and engage with language in different ways. What's an author do? Navigating language expectations. Understanding your rhetorical situation. As a writer, it's essential to understand the rhetorical situation you're writing in, considering the following questions. What are your audience's expectations? What is your purpose and how can your language choices help you achieve it? Does your genre or context come with specific language expectations? And how will your stance be most effectively communicated? Navigating language expectations, exploring your reasons. Explore your language resources. Draw from your community, family, and personal experiences. Remember that any dialects, languages, or expressions you know are strengths. Consider how power and privilege may affect your language choices. 2. Reflect on your choices. Why do you make certain language choices? How do these choices help you express control in your writing? And are there moments when you choose to resist or conform to language expectations? And then reflecting on language attitudes, examine your beliefs about language. What assumptions do you have about English and other languages or dialects? Where do these beliefs come from? How have they shaped your view of language? Observing others' language use, power, identity, and relationships. How others use language. Language is often used to establish bonds, create or reinforce identity, support others, or sometimes to put them down. Pay attention to how people around you use language to navigate their relationships. Listening and reading carefully, engaging with diverse language backgrounds. Active engagement. Be open-minded when engaging with people from different language backgrounds. Use platforms like social media to learn how others use language. Challenge your assumptions and biases about how people speak or write. Reflect on your initial reactions and question whether they're fair. Initiate conversations about language diversity, expectations, and equity in class. These discussions benefit everyone by fostering awareness and understanding. Explore and learn. Learn about the history of different languages and dialects and engage with language practices in your own community. Develop proficiency. Work on building proficiency in multiple dialects or languages. Recognize the value in all the languages and tools you possess. And then think critically about your role as a writer. Reflect on how you can use writing to advocate for equity and justice in language and communication. Reflecting on your powers in language. Professor H. Sammy Aim raises two important questions for reflection. 1. How can language be used to maintain, reinforce, and perpetuate existing power structures? And how can language be used to resist, redefine, or revise these power relations? Think about a time when you used language to either maintain or challenge power relations. What choices did you make and why? And how did this expectation shape your view or choice of language and power? Takeaways. As we navigate through our roles as writers, it's essential to stay aware of the power dynamics embedded in language. By making informed, deliberate choices in our language uses, we can contribute to a more inclusive and just world. Always be reflective of your language attitudes, stay open to learning from others, and embrace the diverse linguistic resources that you bring to your writing and communication. Chapter 5, Understanding College Expectations. I should have probably started my other classes with this one. Not this class, but my regular ones I teach in person. When you first enter college, it can feel like you're learning a new language. Each class, professor, and subject brings its own set of expectations. However, there's some general habits and approaches that, when practiced, can help you succeed as an active and engaged writer, thinker, and student. Let's break down these habits and expectations and see how they contribute to your growth in college and beyond. 1. Be curious. Inquiry leads to discovery. Always ask questions. The best way to deepen your understanding is to inquire and investigate. Don't be afraid to poke and pry until you discover something new. Curiosity drives critical thinking. Explore the why behind decisions. Consider who makes certain decisions and why they are made. Dig deeper. Why are things the way they are? What motivates change? Key point. The more questions you ask, the more engaged and informed you become. Be creative. Take risks. Step outside your comfort zone by exploring ideas or topics you're unfamiliar with. Experiment with new methods, approaches, or styles in your writing and thinking. Look from different perspectives. Imagine different viewpoints to see your topic in a new light. Try interviewing your subject, even if it's an imaginary interview. Use different mediums. Don't limit yourself to just writing. Consider incorporating visuals, videos, or other media into your work to enhance your creativity. Creativity isn't just for artists, it's for anyone who wants to bring a fresh perspective to their work. 3. Be open and flexible. Consider all sides. Engage with ideas that seem strange or even incorrect to you. This helps broaden your understanding. Listen carefully to opposing viewpoints, especially ones that challenge your beliefs. Put yourselves in others' shoes. Try to understand the perspective of people with different values, experiences, and ideas. Flexibility and openness allow for growth and understanding in academic discussions. 4. Be engaged. Engagement with ideas. Don't just passively absorb information. Grapple with it, respond to it, and connect to it. Other ideas you've encountered. Find something interesting in every task. Even in courses that aren't your favorite, look for topics or ideas that spark your interest. I was actually just listening to a speech this morning that was talking about this and your engagement with listening. And apparently if you listen to a speech, like don't take any notes, like you're just listening passively, you remember about 10% of it. If you listen and you take notes, you remember about 50% of it. But if you like actively listen and try to like jump in and like really respond, it's like 90 up to 95% that you remember. That's neither here nor there. Again, I think that was just like an interesting point that I heard this morning. It kind of just fits in here. Find something interesting in every task. Even in courses that aren't your favorite, look for topics or ideas that spark your interest. Key point, the more you engage with the material, the more meaningful your learning becomes. 5, be persistent. Keep going. Persistence is key. Keep working at challenging tasks and follow through until the end. Don't shy away from redoing and improving your work. This is how learning happens. Overcome obstacles. Identify what's difficult for you and work with instructors or classmates to find solutions. Reflect on why obstacles exist. What can you change and what's outside your control? Key point, learning is a process and persistence will help you overcome difficulties. I speak for myself and the rest of the faculty here, and I would say that anybody here is willing to go the extra mile to help you guys out. If you have questions, if you want to improve your grades. Nobody here is going to say, no, I won't put in the extra work to help you. It's oftentimes I find students don't do a good job when they decide they don't want to do it, right? 6, be responsible. Own your education. Take ownership of your learning. This means being proactive, showing up, and doing the work. Engage responsibility with the academic community. This includes acknowledging others' ideas and giving credit where it's due. Hold others accountable. It's important not only to hold yourself accountable, but also to expect responsibility from your instructors and your classmates. Key point, responsibility is about taking charge of your learning and engaging fairly with others. Think about the way you think. Reflect on your learning. Take time to reflect on how you learn and think. This reflection can help you identify obstacles and find ways to overcome them. Key point, metacognition. Thinking about your own thinking can help you develop as a learner. I know I've mentioned this before. I'm sure this is something everyone does, whether they're aware of it or not. You'll probably think about this or many other things you learned in any given day, right? You'll kind of re-examine them. Be true to yourself. Expect change. College will likely change you, but that doesn't mean abandoning your core values or identity. Embrace new experiences, but stay connected to what makes you unique. Growth doesn't mean losing yourself. It's about adding to who you are. Characteristic features of college writing. Here are some general characteristics of college-level writing that you should aim to practice. 1, clear and recognizable organization. Your ideas should be presented in a logical, structured way. 2, logical relationship between ideas. Clearly mark how your ideas relate to one another. Cause and effect, comparison, etc. Explicit claims with support. Make clear arguments or statements and provide evidence to back them up. Responsible interaction with others' ideas. Respectfully respond to others' ideas in your writing, acknowledging their contributions. Creative expression. Even within academic writing, find ways to make your work original and engaging. Genre awareness across disciplines. Understand the different academic fields have different writing conventions, and then proper citation of sources. Always document your sources using appropriate citation style, in this case, APA. We've changed. I think everybody did a really good job in here on their APA, on their papers. So, advice from Mr. Johnson, never forget why you're here. My specific advice for success in college, remember your purpose. You're here to be a student and succeed in your education. Think of your time in college as a full-time job. God, I'm so frustrated. My mom telling me that all the time, and here I am telling you that, right? It's a full-time job. It's what you're doing. Stay focused. Many students get caught up in other aspects of college life and lose sight of why they're there. Remember that classes are your priority. Avoid costly mistakes. Some of my friends didn't finish college on time or left with debt because they forgot their main reason for attending. Don't let this happen to you. Many of my friends, right, they did a 5th year or they just never even finished because they didn't have their goals in sight, right? They didn't know what they really wanted and they just kept going to school or kept taking random classes. Conclusion, building habits for success. By embracing these habits, curiosity, creativity, flexibility, engagement, persistence, responsibility, reflection, and authenticity, you're building the foundation for success in college. These expectations aren't just about getting good grades. They're about becoming a better thinker, learner, and writer. Stay focused on why you're here and strive to make the most out of every learning opportunity. Everyone's a writer, Chapter 15, Understanding Analysis. Demystifying analysis. The word analysis might seem intimidating, but it's simply the process of thinking critically about a topic and determining how you feel about it. According to the book, analysis means breaking something down into its parts, methodically thinking through those parts to better understand the whole. You likely perform analysis all the time without even realizing it. Think about how you decide to buy something like headphones. 1. What purpose do you want the headphones for? 2. What features are most important to you? The importance of analysis in everyday life. Reflect. How many decisions, large and small, have you made in the past week, month, or year? Example, from small decisions, what to eat for breakfast, to major ones, which college to attend. Key idea. Analysis is not confined to academics. It plays a critical role in every academic discipline and is useful in all professional fields. As your instructor, I always encourage you to express what you think, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. The only wrong answer in analysis is no answer. The goal is to engage with the material and express your true thoughts. When writing an analysis, I want you to go beyond telling me what you think. I want to hear. Be genuine in your response. If you don't like something, explain why. If you're indifferent, tell me why the subject doesn't grab your interest. Honest engagement with the material will help you develop a stronger analytical voice. Go back to my own slant on things. I used to get in trouble in high school for writing why I didn't like things, right? Like that was like they would give me an essay. I would write the essay, but it wouldn't say what they wanted. Like it would have like its own opinion, and then I would get in trouble for it. Not necessarily even for doing the assignment wrong, but because I didn't like the question or I disagreed with what they thought I should agree with. And that's the opposite way of how I aim to be as a teacher, right? Again, I think you could be a better writer if you tell the truth, right? If you actually write something that you don't think I want to hear, just know that I'm not going to be affected either way, probably. Write whatever you want. Like, I want to hear your honest opinions about things, and that's going to make you a better writer. It's going to make you better at expressing yourself, and that's like the whole point of this class, right? Key elements of analytical writing. 1, a question that prompts analysis. Analysis always starts with a question. These are often open-ended with no single right answer. Your goal is to explore why something is or isn't, and support your conclusions with evidence. A description of the subject. You need to describe the subject you're analyzing, providing enough context for your audience. Remember, not everyone knows about the subject you're exploring, so be thorough in your description. 3, evidence from close examination. Key elements, patterns, and relationships within the subject must be discovered. Different types of analysis include rhetorical analysis, what the next paper is going to be about, right? Examines how messages are conveyed, for example, commercials. Discourse analysis looks at communication practices within a specific community. Process analysis breaks down tasks into individual steps. Causal analysis investigates why something happened. And then data analysis examines numerical, quantitative, or non-numerical qualitative data. Insight gained. Your analysis should offer insights into your subject, uncover new patterns or new understanding that leads to a thesis, and then clear, precise language. Your audience should easily follow your analysis. Pay attention to the words and clarity in your explanation. And then we got visual analysis. When analyzing visuals, ask the same questions you would with a text. Consider elements like color, light, perspective, words, symbols, and overall composition. Key features. Description of the visual, contextual information, purpose, audience, historical, political context, analysis of key elements and symbols, precise language to describe what's happening in the picture. The roadmap of writing analytically. 1, find a topic that matters to you. Choose something that engages you, because if you're interested, your audience is more likely to be engaged. 2, consider your rhetorical situation. Think about your audience, purpose, stance, and the broader context. Who are you writing for? What do they need to know? 3, articulate your purpose. Narrow your focus to specific purpose, whether you're analyzing a text, community, process, or visual. And then think about your stance. How do you want to present yourself? Your tone and attitude toward the topic matter. Analyze your subject. Different types of analysis require different approaches. For example, rhetorical analysis. What claims is the text making, and how well does the author support those claims? Process analysis. Break down each step of a process. Causal analysis. Focus on why something happened and what caused it. Determine what your analysis shows. After you've analyzed the subject, ask yourself, what new insights or conclusions have you reached? This will form the basis of your thesis. 7, organize and start writing. Begin with a tentative thesis that identifies your subject, insights, and significance. As you write, support your thesis with evidence and be ready to revise if necessary. Draft and opening. Start by describing your subject and its relevance, then state your thesis clearly. Conclusion. Analysis in writing. Whether you're analyzing a text, visual, or data, the goal of analysis is to break down complex subjects and offer new insight. Remember, analysis isn't just about understanding a topic. It's about sharing your perspective with an audience in a clear and meaningful way. Now we're going into using evidence and supporting arguments. In academic writing, making a claim is not enough. You need evidence to back up your claims. Whether you're writing an argumentative essay, research paper, or even a persuasive speech, Strong evidence adds credibility and helps convince your audience. The key concept: evidence refers to quotes, facts, statistics, data, or examples that support your argument and help to prove your point. Without evidence, your claims may seem like opinions. Proper use of evidence shows that you've done your research and are engaging thoughtfully with your topic. Types of evidence: quotes, direct words from a text, speech, or expert. Example: education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world, as Nelson Mandela once said. When to use: to support your point with authority or demonstrate a specific viewpoint. When I was in college in this class, I like to use a quote in almost every paragraph, because then you're analyzing a quote every paragraph, and that's almost every assignment that will work for, right? If you can use a quote in every one, that's gonna make sure you hit the amount of sources you need, right? Let's say your paper is 7 paragraphs, so you got 5 body paragraphs, an intro and a conclusion. If you use a quote in every one of those, you hit the maximum that you need, right? 5 sources. So I just think it's easy. That's an easy way to hit that, right? Just have a quote in every paragraph. That way you don't forget, and you know it's there and you can see it. And it also gives you something to talk about in every paragraph. Let's say you're like, oh, what do I talk about here? You can just talk about the quote, right? So that's just something I like to do. And again, I know I've brought this up before, but when I do this, still I have a separate Word document open. It will have the quote that I used, and then it will have the website of where I got the quote underneath of it, so that I can go in and make that citation really easily at the end and have a citation page really easily at the end, because I find that sometimes that's what's going to take you a lot of time. Like, sure, I found this quote, I put this quote in my paper, but I might not have cited it properly then, and now I can't find the quote and I can't find where I got it, and that just wastes you a lot of time, right? If you just save all that stuff to begin with, it's going to help you out. Facts: statements that can be proven true. Example: the Earth orbits Sun every 365 days. When to use: to establish undeniable truths and provide a solid foundation for your argument. Facts do not have to have a citation, okay? A fact is just the truth. You don't need a citation for that. You would not have to say the Earth orbits the Sun every 365 days. Everybody should know that, right? It just is a fact, right? So even facts that aren't as well known, I think that is true for. I mean, if it's less well known, you might need to use a citation, but the more easy the fact is, the less citations you need. 3, statistical data: numerical or scientific information. Example: according to a 2021 study, 70% of college students struggled with managing their time effectively. When to use: to show trends, research, or support a claim with concrete data. I know I was saying you could use quotes in every paragraph, but you could use these in every paragraph too, right? Like, you could use a statistic. Again, if you chose global warming, you could probably use a statistic in every paragraph you wrote in that paper, and then you could cite that statistic from where you got it, and then you could probably write about what you thought about that statistic, and that would give you a full paragraph, right? That would give you several sentences. Even if you just talked about the 70% and managing time effectively as 2 separate ideas, that's going to give you probably a couple sentences, enough sentences to finish writing a whole paragraph, would be my argument. Examples: specific cases that illustrate your point. For example, the success of Tesla's electronic vehicles demonstrates that growing demand for sustainable transportation. When to use: to make abstract ideas more relatable and understandable. Yeah, specific examples. Global warming, you could use a specific example of maybe the houses in Massachusetts that are just kind of falling off into the water, right? To talk about rising sea level, that might be a good, but then you could find a specific source for that, right? And you could use that specific source to write a couple paragraphs about. And I know I talk a little bit about our last project is like a mixed media project. You could make a slideshow and you could use pictures showing these houses falling right into the water, right? Why is evidence important? It builds credibility. It shows your audience that you've done your research and are well informed. It strengthens your argument. Evidence provides support for your claims and makes your writing more persuasive. It prevents generalization. Without evidence, arguments can become vague or unsupported opinions. It appeals to ethos and logos. Evidence helps establish credibility. Ethos and logical reasoning. Logos. How to incorporate evidence. 1. Introduce the evidence. Provide context before you present the evidence. For example, according to the CDC, the number of flu cases has increased by 10% in the last decade. Present the evidence. Use a direct quote, statistic, fact, or example. Example, in 2020, 35% of adults reported experiencing symptoms of anxiety. Explain the evidence. Don't just drop the evidence into your writing. Explain how it supports your claim. Example, this statistic highlights the growing mental health crisis, which underscores the need for better mental health resources. And then cite the evidence. Always give credit to the source of your evidence. Depending on your format, in this case, APA, you need to properly cite your sources to avoid plagiarism. Do you guys see how that would just be a paragraph right there? Like if you follow those steps, that will give you these full paragraphs that you may need for these future papers. I'm thinking like this rhetorical essay, this will help on that too, because again, you could just use quotes for the things you're talking about to help prove your point, or stats to help prove your points. But I also think, especially in the argumentative essay, which is the next one after that, this could be really helpful to you, this particular thing, because you could almost copy this idea paragraph for paragraph and write a whole paper as far as I was concerned. Because you could again, you're just going to follow the evidence, or you're going to introduce your idea, right? Then you'll use a quote after you introduce the idea. There's 2 sentences, and then you just need about 3 sentences explaining that quote. And you get a quote. So we're talking like 5 sentences right there, even if you only write 2 or 3 sentences. If you can write more than that, it's going to be even longer. And then you can cite that afterwards. Make sure you get that proper citation in there, which I've passed out information before, but again, it's never been easier to write citations, in my opinion. Like there's so many websites online. I'll share a resource maybe later today. I'll put one in the class of a website we can use to do that. But if you do that, I mean, you're going to have the proper paragraphs you need for a whole paper, right? Almost every time. That's all you're going to need every time. And then your conclusion you'll re-go over everything you talked about and your final idea, right? The final thing you've come up with. Example, incorporating evidence in writing. Claim social media has a negative impact on mental health. Evidence. A 2019 study by the Pew Research Center found that 45% of teens feel overwhelmed by the pressure to post content that makes them look good. Explanation. This finding shows that the pressure to curate an idealized image on social media platforms can contribute to stress and anxiety among young users. Common mistakes when using evidence. Overloading evidence. Including too much evidence without explanation can overwhelm the reader. Balance evidence with your analysis. So this is why I would say use a quote every paragraph versus like many quotes in one paragraph, right? Because you don't want to overload and make a paper more about the other person's words than your own, right? Like if you have too many of someone else's things, like it is no longer your own writing. You need to have your own writing in there, which again, that's why I think it's so easy to have one quote per paragraph, okay? And that's not like a hard line rule. Like that's just like what I find to be the easiest. Like if it was me, if I had to write this paper, I would use one quote a paragraph so I could hit that 3 to 5 citations I need. But if you have too many, you're just it's gonna be cluttered with stuff, right? You don't necessarily want to clutter your paper. You just want to have enough. Cherry picking. Avoid using only the evidence that supports your argument while ignoring evidence that contradicts it. Engage with multiple perspectives. I think I'm hopefully going to talk about counter arguments in my next set of notes here today. But so my next bit of advice, again, maybe one of your last paragraphs will be a counter argument, right? So here's all the arguments I have for what I think and what I think is right. And then the last paragraph will be a counter argument of this is what other people say. Okay? So that way you're not cherry picking ideas, that you've actually read the other side. This is, again, specifically more for the argumentative essay, but the rhetorical essay, this could also work, right? You'd be talking about the rhetoric of something. You could talk about why people don't necessarily like this thing or whatever you're talking about, or maybe some of the negative rhetorical aspects of the thing at the end, right? Yeah, keep that in mind. Don't cherry pick, right? Dropping quotes. Don't use evidence without providing context or analysis. Always explain how your evidence supports your claim. I want to bring this up now. I do have future lectures on it. For every sentence of a quote you use, you should have 2 sentences of your own explaining that quote. Okay? So it's 2 sentences to every 1 sentence of quote. So if you use 2 sentences of a quote, it's 4 sentences of your own writing. Okay? And that, again, not a hard line rule. That's just kind of like the standard. Like, that is what you should be doing, okay? And I also want to say, if you use more than 4 lines of a quote, there's different rules of using quotes in your paper. So if you use 4 lines, let's say, so you're writing a paragraph, okay? And like you use you introduce the evidence, and then you have a quote that's 4 lines long. What you have to do is you have to single space that quote, okay? And then you kind of put it in its own paragraph underneath your introduction. I would just avoid using long quotes, okay? Because it does make it so you have to use different, there's different structure that you have to use if you do that, okay? So just try to use, like, again, 1 or 2 sentences is fine. But as soon as you start getting into full paragraphs, you need to then, like, it becomes its own mini paragraph inside of your paragraph. It's kind of what it looks like. So you put the quote bubbles on it and you single space it, and then you like move it over and put it like right in the middle of your paragraph if it's too long. So it's like anytime it's like 3 or 4 sentences, you use a really long quote, you have to like really kind of shrink it and put it into your paper, okay? But don't try, again, just try to use like smaller quotes, like break up your quotes, right? Like you could have a quote you really like and you could like talk about it in a couple different paragraphs, right? Versus like just using a really long quote all at once. And then 4, lack of citation. Failing to properly cite your sources is considered plagiarism. Always give credit where credit is due. Again, I think did I tell the story where I got a 0 one time and I just forgot a quote and the woman that gave me the 0 wrote the book? And I was like, geez, ouch. You know, I had to fight that. It was annoying. I ended up getting 100 on the paper, but I had to fight it still. You know, like it took a lot of time. Again, I want you to not waste any time, right? Like don't waste any time. It's like you could make an accident that wasn't, you didn't even mean to do that, and you could like have to fight somebody about it. Be like, I didn't even mean to do that. It's not that big a deal. You wrote the book. It's many emails, a lot of hours of stress. You just don't want that. Then how to properly cite evidence, APA. According to Smith 2020, the global average temperature has risen by 1.2 Celsius since the late 19th century, page 45. I think I passed an APA paper out day 1, but again, email me if you want more help with APA. It's the title page, page numbers, top right corner, and then citations and a reference page, essentially. Wrap up key takeaways. Evidence is essential to back up your claims and make your argument stronger. Always introduce, present, and explain your evidence. Don't assume the reader will automatically understand how it supports your point. Make sure to cite your sources properly to give credit and avoid plagiarism. Incorporating evidence effectively shows that you've done your research, enhance your credibility, and makes your arguments more persuasive. Your audience is more likely to be convinced if you can back up what you're saying with solid, credible evidence.